Julie here with Sirius Dallas Moon, Mercury Hour, Mars Day. Summit vibes as I'm recording, but I'm gonna publish that for quite some months later. I'm gonna look at June 2027 astrology. The moon is applying to conjoin Saturn, ascendant applying to Lilith, midheaven 4 degrees Libra, Venus 27 degrees Leo. So a little bit of omens before I begin to record. The first thing that I was thinking about, which is Gemini vibes, is the twin drops. Not 9/11, but the marketing strategy. Uh, Actually, instead of waiting for one another to drop in their own separate dates, having the twin drops. So, for example, if it's musicians, then two musicians having an album drop scheduled at the same day as the twin drop, understanding that people are going to be able to buy both albums. And this is in line of the marketing relations I remember from sailing, from basically taking a ferry back to Israel Palestine on November. And so we went to one shipping company in Greece, and they said, "We don't have ferries. Look at the sea, 11-meter waves." And they said, "But wait a second, have your coffee. Let's see if our neighbors have a ship," which fortunately they had. Maybe I'd be living in Greece otherwise. Um, and my mom was astounded, and she literally asked me, like, "Aren't you competing companies?" And I said, "The neighboring companies." So Mercury retrograde in Procyon, Mercury ruled month. When not right now, right now it's July, but talking about June 2027, the twinning effect with Mercury and the understanding that we don't have to fear competitors, and even when people are born as twins, they still will have different ascendants. So this one thing I'm thinking about is the twin drops. And another thing that was coming about was the Pluto Venus. So Pluto is exactly squaring my Venus, and I'm actually looking for an apartment with a garden because our cat dropped dropped the twin twins, and we can't host them at the current place. Something I was thinking about a while ago, um, and this is simply for the cats. So how the crisis of necessity shifts our values, and what it brought me to talk about, I don't remember if I published that video, was a decade-old teaching about the Pluto-Venus hard aspects. And it said the native with the Pluto-Venus hard aspect, they are going to be the transforming one. But for a partner, they need to seek the person that's already there. Now, I'm tending a lot to the darkest taboos of humanity came from several years now, from the drop of the Peter rings, and the way that Peter rings are generated, the calling. There was a lady that litigated Trump successfully And I said to her, lady, the underneath every offender, at the moment of offense, there is a mind hack, there's a mind control. So your man is not just, and if you would be at the time of an offense, it means that somebody was mind hacking. So these are two people missing in the litigation. So just to show you the level of no stone unturned when I tend to these things, and I emphasize a lot the right to exit violence. That being said, for let's say a counterpart, they would need to be on a level that is already aligned. And it's not because of giving chances or not giving chances, it's about the level of, I'm giving a concrete case because I'm a native with a hard aspect between Venus and Pluto. A person who is still doing the growth would need a counterpart that's different than me, because what I'm tending to is an outer planet level. It's a 240 years, 48 years cycle level of taboos and resetting. So the amount of inner shadow work, the amount of things, and a person is still doing the growth, they won't be able to contain me in my situations where I go kill all the rapists, when I'm the one that's saying, hey, the rapists are generated, not born. And every rapist has a handler, and the victim has a mind hacker at the time of the victimhood. So a person who's just, let's say, exiting violence and was, let's say, perpetrator or even for some even victim, won't be able to contain that relapse as I go into my kill all the rapist mode. Like they would need someone that holds the space for them to not relapse with me. So without even looking at June yet, these are like the frames of reference. And of course, the awareness that recovery is not about lowering our standards or lowering our mission, but aligning with all of those. And it's almost like sailing the North Sea. Another thing that came up was the conversations or the sitting of activators. So in the places where things happen, where things move, where decisions get made, um, there are a lot of, let's say, for every person sitting at the table, there's a web of people on an activation network. And one of the things I was thinking about is basically the topic of sovereignty and alignment of the erotic and non-erotic. If I take it, for example, from the Epstein listers, they were entering the field in an arena where there were many cultures where weddings at puberty, think about the world, were accustomed. So they would be sitting at tables and they had to create a common ground on a frequency level with people that were at puberty, with people that, and I kind of bring them all together to the table. And my quest is to raise the bar of alignment. This is where, for example, as in Scientology is an obvious example because it keeps people trapped in extortion cults. When I say people, I mean billionaires. I mean the and the web behind them. Um, People have tried to be non-monogamous. People have tried many things when it comes to maintaining relations while being successful. And the core issues um, are secure attachment, honoring erotic, non-erotic. So when everything was basically stacked against, and then if I think about my kind of like, oh, what point of view am I looking at it from? Is the point of view of, oh well, not only am I raising awareness for that, for a counterpart, I need a person who's already there. What's already there? We're not at the billionaires or even. We're not at the healing societies or secret societies. Is even that's beyond the stars. That's and now into and to fool myself that that's something I can give up is, Richard Feynman said the number one rule is you should not fool yourself, and you're the easiest to fool. So thinking I could work at just as a jobby job and be a cat lady, and I love cats, but is fooling the person who is the easiest to fool, which is me. Um, but that would be the same if I'd say that um, ignoring, not lowering my standards, but ignoring my standards, um, even when it comes to whatever echelons, it would be betraying myself, which would eventually end up like, it's kind of like if I'm aware that that would be betraying myself, I know that ignoring that is is a trajectory where the betrayal is going to be somewhere. And and this is why I'm upfront. Those are around the omens that have been gathering. Um, and the gap between, let's say, the desired reality to the current one, even if I'm looking at my stained hands as I'm sitting having a coffee, um, or something as simple as, oh, I've dedicated to have elegant modal fabric hands, and then the cat was having kittens, and I went with her to the garden, and then I just sat there, and that was the goodbye goodbye pants. So, like I said, Pluto Venus square. Venus is close. Pluto is garbage, or the compost, or rejuvenation. So now, from that perspective, let's take a look at June 2027. Um, 2027 June. Okay, new moon in Gemini, 13 degrees Gemini. Venus ingresses to Gemini. I knew something with Venus because I've seen all this Pluto Venus stuff. And her ingress would mean that she would go into the trine with Pluto, which I love. Um, Mercury retrograde at 6 degrees Cancer, Lilith ingresses to Aquarius to meet Pluto. Venus conjoins Uranus, yet another on my Rahu. Um, Full moon Sagittarius on my midheaven. Sun ingresses to Cancer. I said it's a very personal one. I didn't understand that it's going to pinpoint all of my all of my charts. Um, yeah, the new moon is opposing my Uranus. The full moon is on my midheaven. Sun ingresses to Cancer June 21. Sun conjoins Mercury at 1 degree Cancer June 23. And Mercury leaves Cancer June 26. Not super condensed month, but important points. Um, Particularly, I pay attention to Venus conjoining Uranus, trining Pluto. Now, I have been waiting for the Pluto Uranus sextile and trine, for the Pluto Uranus trine for half a decade, because I knew that the questions that I have regarding my, whether it's commitment style or Venus questions, are going to be addressed significantly when the planet of Kundalini rise and the planet of authenticity, the first being Uranus, the second being Pluto, are going to agree with one another. And then Venus comes and conjoins this from my Rahu to exactly trine Pluto. I know it sounds like a vlog, but I think I'm combining the personal and the general in a way that can make sense to a lot of people on that quest. First of all, it's good news for me. Everything that I see here, I don't like the Sun 22, but um, but everything that I see here is is a telltale. Also, Jupiter 22ing, um, Sun Jupiter sextile, Moon Spica, Lilith ingresses to meet Pluto and Rahu, Chiron 3 degrees. Chiron is going to be conjoining my Sedna, which is another important remediation. They say, oh, remediation and wound. Well, Sedna Chiron is about addressing the wound of Sedna, and which I just did with the omens for this video. And look at this beautiful B6 star with Neptune. Mercury retrograde 5 degrees Cancer. It's going to conjoin my Vesta and trine, apply to trine my Pluto. Incredibly personal month. Um, what can I say? Because the B6 style is external. A lot of the people that have been journeying with Venusian things. Remember, go to the beginning of when I talk about the Pluto Venus hard aspects teaching, which was a decade-old teaching. I think it was either in some astrology cookbook. Um, and by the way, if you remember that teaching, please write it in the comments. It's just something I ran into a decade and I don't even remember where from. Because that was when I wasn't even doing astrology. It was like going through my own Pluto transits and running into the teaching that with the outer planets um, we go through kind of like an inner work. Then I comprised it with tending to something in society. There was a colleague that was speaking about helping other people on these topics, but I was looking at it from the outer planet as making the changes in society, which is not, for example, helping other people can be looking at one's own shadow work. The changes in society can be, oh, that explains why Saturn Neptune in my Neptune square was a Peter drop. While I am the one talking about the right to exit violence and the need to not play into extortion calls if we don't want to perpetuate the issue. So Venus Pluto here complete that and say, while I say that and that is very true, it's not about me being able to, let's say, date an ex-Peter ringer who's not there yet because their recovery and my well-being need to not come into too much of a fraction with one another. So that is something that I think is going to play out in a lot of charts. Saturn 25 degrees. Saturn returns from Mariah Carey. I know because she has Saturn Venus around my Mercury. Probably we're gonna have some good music. Um, Bisextile on degree 6, which is degree of harmony, degree of balancing things, degree of relations, and the awareness with Pluto that it's not a superficial harmony that we seek. It's a psychoerotic Kundalini rise, radical acceptance of erotic and non-erotic that needs to align, and it aligns together with esoterics, economy, politics, technology, cities, sexuality. A lot of the no's that I've been saying um, were facilitated by that alignment being incredibly clear to me, and by the fact that of course there are the external pressures which are beyond imaginable, but also whenever I had a point of interference to authentically state my case, knowing that I can't ignore that because that would be a self-treason act. And that's an act of, or it's a message of authenticity. Um, and I never misled anybody about me. Like if people chose to ignore who I am or ignore what I said, it's kind of like that's theirs, but I did not betray me in that sense. Um, Venus can also be of an artistic expression, values in trade. Okay, the psychoerotic Kundalini rise in trade. I remember when I did talk about the Bilderberg and Belsen chart, or the Bilderberg chart, and how the psychoerotic with the esoterics has to align for me with but also that alignment is the change that we want to see in the world. It's not about ignoring sexuality. It's also not about hypereroticism. Um, and it's also not about ignoring the inner child or the inner infant. Um, that's a lot. But if we can envision the aligned version of um, oh no, did I call it? No, no. Let's see if I bought anything. No, no. Um, and it's something, that vision has been a core essence that allowed me to say a lot of no's whenever I had a point of interference. It's kind of like from outside there were horrors. From within that aligned core, that whenever my say was there to be said, that remained my say in a fixed way, has to do with that vision and with that awareness. Okay, it's a grand vision that sustains a ship that sails the North Sea. Um, and and that alignment is going to have different ways of manifesting for different people, but also if people are still in the growing into, then maybe they want to look to the Venus Pluto aspects and see there's a hard aspect, if it's a conjunction, if it's a square, if it's a opposition, if it's the minor hard aspects, which I think are the 45. I think even the 30 is a minor hard aspect, the semi-sextile. Then because some of these people might hear me talking and say, "Hey, I also want to grow into that, or I also want to go there." I'm like, "That's amazing," but both of us need to understand that if we're still growing there, unlike what we've been told by classical relational teachings, to be growing together, we need to have different counterparts. And that I think was the biggest erotic mistake that um, that are kind of like, oh, I forgot, and that forgetting was something that was misaligned. Now, of course, it has a reasoning, because to be in places where even in the ether, then it's that awareness of, wait a second, if we are talking about the world, the access for each and every individual to have their say and have their say counted is 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 important to plan for. Um, and it's not and by the way, that erotic vision, that erotic alignment is a key factor even in maintaining that, because it's not just a value or a virtue, It's a core. Let's just say if I had to stand in front of Lucifer, I'd tell Lucifer, listen, body, heart, mind, and soul, secure attachment, relaxed arousal, honoring erotic and non-erotic are non-negotiable to me. Because if you're asking me, what do I actually want? If I could get anything I want, what would I actually want? Right there is a vision that's not based on lack. It's a success that can be fulfilling, and it's a drive that is not inspired by hunger and quenching, and it's not even a stoic, or it's even, it's kind of like it's more of a tantric than a stoic, because it's not virtue based, but the understanding that, let's say, it's when I haven't eaten anything at all that is nourishing that I crave the GMO food. By the way, for those who are wondering about the spirulina, mankai, acai, that's how I start my morning. Just let me give you a tip. You put it in a water bottle, then you fill and you refill the water. It's gonna take you a couple of hours to drink that, and by that time you're already hydrated. Then the deeper issues come out, and then those issues can be better addressed, but that's going to be after you've nourished your body with a significant amount of actually healthy food and has better ability to absorb. Not a doctor. um, Now, and another thing I have to say, it's not about, because I began with before the Peter Ring drop. There are a lot of figures that were like told that I'm a gold digger, and I'm like, the closest that I can be to a gold digger is to go to an actual, not even a mine, but the downstream river, and and ethically search for gold as a joy of an experience. But then I was kind of like aware of the upcoming petering drop, and I'm like, canoe. But then, but the mindset is not the canoe, and this is something that I definitely figured is, and it's not the big mention in the way that we were taught to desire or to quench for, or even the old money estate that has a particular aesthetics. It's an awareness of the design of an experience that is aligned. How it's gonna look like, I don't know. And it's also a global. It's not just a local. Um, let's take a look at more stuff. Oh, Mercury is also ruling of either really authentic truths or no filter truths, or lies, but lies like a child. And with Mercury, we get lies when we're not allowed to tell the truth. But Mercury also has no filter, so those lies don't hold much water. Now, I grew up a millennial, and we were told something that was supposed to be a lie. We're given all the motivations of how economy can look good and be good. Several of us, I'm one of them, dreamt with action and said no to what wasn't consistently. And that glass ceiling, the global glass ceiling, is breaking. Because by the fact, it's kind of like we were told a lie, but we began to act on and saw that what was felt as a lie to those that told us that lie was actually the truth. Okay, I want you to think about, let's say, um, now, I know that there are a couple of, let's say, energies around me that have been exposed to me and saw that I'm something different. So, um, which is why I guess I opened with the first introduction to keep in mind, because that's a juncture. Apparently, that's a juncture. um, and that's been I like a footprint on the sense of time that to some people is mythical, but it's basically mundane. Lilith ingress to Aquarius, July 11th. Lilith enters the bisextile route. So we have Venus and Lilith in the bisextile within order to be a part of a very big transformation. And that's also something, I'm not going to say I'm looking forward to that alignment because it is Lilith conjoining Pluto. um, and trining Neptune, but it's also Lilith sextiling, trining Uranus. Sorry, sextiling Neptune and trining Uranus. Um, the antidote to a lot of our fears is the essence of desire that is aligned. It's not an addiction based. Um, more of this month. This month is a very interesting one. The full moon. Full moon Uranus is where it's at. Full moon on the galactic center, bisextile in the background. Jupiter in Leo, Ketu, middle decan Leo. Ketu, middle decan Leo, Rahu, middle decan Aquarius. Sun ruling over Ketu during that full moon. Ketu is in the decan of Leo, where we can have dematerialization of a lot of obsessions. We can dematerialize health problems with this moon, and moon on the galactic center will show us exactly the problem, and Mercury Cancer retrograde is going to show us where was the problem with nourishment that came from Mula. Was our soil not healthy? Was our minerals not absorbing? Was um, more things? Here is the challenge, the core challenge that, and then this is the part of the alignment that I think can really facilitate a breakthrough, a global ceiling, glass ceiling breakthrough, because it's not just having shared goals and values, it's understanding when we need different counterparts to contain and support us actually reaching those goals and values that are similar, or shared vision or compatible. But for us to get there, we need the counterparts that are different counterparts that are already there for each and every one of us that's on that journey. Um, as an intuition, I've had at least a decade before I saw that astrological teaching. Um, and I think for people that are dealing with issues like addiction or relational patterns or whatnot, that's something that can. Now, again, I'm not saying all of them, the Venus Pluto hard aspects in particular. Is it also for Venus Neptune? I don't know, but I just put it out there. And that can shift our thinking to actually have successful journeys of recovery that reach happy, thriving, joyous life economy. And it has to be on a global level, because for us to thrive, the world needs to be a world that allows for thriving. For the world to be a world that allows for thriving, we need to be the one thriving. Like we are that, we are that world. So um, and more about June. Mercury goes retrograde June 10th. Lots of Gemini. It is a Gemini month. Strong bisextile. The bisextile is exactly on the degree for most of the month. And again, of course, we still have Sedna in the background, so it tells us that it's the shifting from extortion called generation and mindset, basically the shifting from generation of sex offenders, sex addicted, sex traffickers and trafficked. Two, the grand vision of alignment is what on a world level we are, how should I say that? It's not about the world not being free, but the world aligning with actual freedom, um, and tackling things at the core level. For example, one of the core teachings of Scientology that was interfering with that, whether by design or not, by the way, is the lack of attention to the fact that when a child is harmed, there is a consciousness inside the child that is not a child. There's a consciousness inside the person who's harming the child. There's also not them. It basically was gatekeeping recovery. And it had to do with resource allocation, or people had to go by this route to receive, let's say, food stamps or housing support or whatnot. Um, and um, what can we expect in June? There's a lot of agreements between the outer planets with this basic style, and the lunation is around Mula. We're gonna have both Venus and Lilith involved, so it's going to be a very profoundly transformative month that has a lot of things in full light. Okay, it's not in full light like a petering drop. Is in full light like shifting the trade from extortion called phase two. One of the things I've been paying attention is the regrowing tea drug in China, and I was thinking, wait a second, Liechtenstein made a lot of its money, yes, by money launder too, and they're very honest and open about this, but also by production of fake teeth. And I'm just thinking, well, now that Japan is shifting that industry, the closed Liechtenstein, first of all, might respond in various ways. It might open more so than it had. Creating teeth rejuvenation. Well, we're still within the Saturn sextile Pluto with Neptune. Neptune is drug, so it's a drug that regrows teeth. Now, probably it can have side effects, it can have, but also the drugs that are used to do a root canal or the fake teeth material. And how something as small as one invention can shift the world politics so tremendously, because Liechtenstein is one of the most secretly stable. It's not as well known as Switzerland, but it's secretly it has been it's almost an autarkic economy, or almost the only autarkic economy that is successful. And now some would say, if we don't count money launder, well, like, well, with the fake teeth industry, it was something that could transmute money laundering. And then we have another, just think of what it does for Japan. It's kind of like, oh, Japan could go Liechtenstein. Japan could transmute from having to rely on money launder to having an actual ethical industry based economy. It can completely transform Japan. Okay, if it's not a bubble, Saturn Neptune can have susceptibility to be a bubble, but it's also just that one detail, Mercury, and how it can shift the trade or shift the world relations in a subtle way. It's not like a world war, or it's not like, remember before on the onset of the war with Ukraine, one of the things I was shown is I went to look at cars. Now, I know what I was looking for after I saw Lightyear 1, but I was shown how Geely was reliant on the electric batteries that were manufactured in Ukraine, and that's the kind of stuff that only a vendor at the Volvo would tell you. It wasn't chasing cars, it was basically taking a look at the industry, and that made everything Geely had an onset of a year and a half waiting. So some things went more luxury, like even Geely itself, and some things challenged the trade relations to the point that got China worried about Russia. Was it in a roundabout way productive to the BRICS? And I said, well, that's the East, that's the BRICS. We're concerned US, maybe Ankara. We're having a summit in Ankara today. Of course, this video will be broadcasted in the future, but Ankara is a part of the BRICS and a NATO ally at the same time. Now, I have been talking about the thing that changes everything. I'm a big fan of the thing that changes everything. While I'm not redundant or reductive, there are things that change everything in any industry. Like I gave that example over that teeth example. And the thing that changes everything is shifting from, if you put aside the standards and virtue and looked at the core things of leveling up from, the thing that changes everything is wealth, health, love, well-being, erotic, non-erotic, in every juncture. Sound like that's the court is the one thing that changes everything. Essentially, it's not one thing. I agree with you. That's the feature of the thing that changes everything. It's connected. Is that it's connected to everything. Now, if you're honing in on that thing that changes everything, first of all, you're going to have a lot of core stability. And core stability basically means that whenever there's a point of interference, whenever you're saying things that say it can be the core stabilizing thing, not as a dogma. Very good for mental health. Now, of course, it's not a fake thing. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to stick to one thing. It can take a quest to say, hey, what is the thing that changes everything? whatever is a big business decision, or you know, we're in a summit vibe today, and that alignment stays the thing that changes everything. Because when it's a military alliance, we could say, hey, we could hop on a different thing, we could hop on, but what's the thing that changes everything? And with the thing that changes everything, it can happen in the current settings, it can happen in another setting, but the counterparts have to be already there to allow it to happen in whichever setting. And how should I say that? It's not something that can be gate kept without the compounding collapse of the gatekeepers. So, this is definitely the themes that I'm expecting to see June 2027. And here's another thing with Gemini, it's a binary. So think about male, female, XXXY, black or white. And what's the thing that changes everything? Is that alignment. It's not about the teeter tatter. And this is something, if I could say one thing to BIPOC people, because BIPOC people are they're entering what millennials have entered upon the end of the 90s with the Neptune ingress to Aquarius. We were basically venturing in on a millionaire cruise, on a mega trillionaire cruise with a smartphone. We would log on to the smartphone and we'd have the number one motivation tip from this and that and that and that. We'd have a conference at high school and we'd have JP Morgan through IBM giving us a free Dutch chocolate and telling us exactly what they want. Okay, it's kind of like even that information was gatekeeping, like that, which allowed us to say no, which allowed us to say, wait a second, I'm not here to double the profit by all that little detail of the whole of the toothpaste. There are people here that have technologies that can make disabled people communicate with. And I'm not giving patents away to a company that shows me upfront that they want to, or what's that company is JP Morgan. That insistence compounded to being on the safe side of the fence at the Peter Ring drop 25, 20, 27 years later. Saturn return. '17, I said no to JP Morgan. 2026, a Peter Ring drops. Even Buffett was having to take certain steps to withdraw, and I had nothing to clear on the table. I was not a billionaire, but I was also, now of course, it's the privilege of not being born privileged. but this is so important for BIPOC people because BIPOC people are entering the trajectory that we entered as millennials when we were 17. You're sitting at the table, invited, told up front what is expected, and you're marketed at a theater